Yeah, well, it starts with great content. I mean, it's just that the story is just so good. It's such a classic. It's unique in so many ways. The characters are just amazing, you know, and that's in that show.
Dragon Ball Z is a philosophy mixed into a lifestyle, mixed into mythology, mixed into theology, mixed into, I mean, it is, I mean, not really trying to read too much into this, but literally life lessons for your entire if you followed the rules that you get in Dragon Ball Z, you would be living a perfect life.
I think the Z Fighters are such a pure example of how people should be, you know what I mean? It's self-sacrifice, the greater good, and that sort of thing. It's powerful.
It's kind of hard because I wouldn't say I watch it as a viewer because I've always seen it as a working professional. But I've come to a place where I really appreciate the show and for what it is, and to see the fact that it still is popular today, decades later. I've been working on this show. I've been here 11 years coming up here this summer, and to still be working on this show in some form or capacity, it blows my mind.
I think the longevity behind Dragon Ball Z is in its simplicity. This person is going to fight this person. And it's really that simple, but behind that, what you have are well-defined, very specific characters that appeal to a wide audience.
It was just smart, I think, to bring it to the U.S. You know, how popular it was in Japan, but a lot of fans nowadays, they realize, hey, this came out in like 1980 something. A lot of people didn't realize that it was a manga.
Dragon Ball Z is the story of it's a story of the relationship between Goku and Vegeta, which is emblematic or representative of a story between not good versus evil. It's about transformation. It's about change. It's about elite versus the underclass. It's about rising up from, you know, didn't have a silver spoon, and can you beat the guy with the silver spoon?
I think it's just great how long the series has actually lasted, because, I mean, it started in the 1980s, and that's still here today, and they're still making new episodes and stuff like that. So, and they got video games like crazy, and lots of cool stuff. I really like Dragon Ball Z.
And everybody knows Dragon Ball Z. It's the king, you know. It's what exposed America to Japanese anime. There's other animes, but it was the big one.
I wasn't really into anime until I saw Dragon Ball Z. That was like the first one that I saw.
I'm glad that more people are getting into anime, and you have Dragon Ball Z to thank for that.
I think DBZ was a game changer in the, not only the anime industry, but the way that anime was viewed and consumed in the US.
One of those cult classics. You know anime, you know Dragon Ball. Even if you don't watch it, you still know it. You can still recognize the characters because they are such a big part of American anime.
There was so much that, you know, the show had that a lot of other shows didn't. It brought out so much action and it's so much suspense, even if it did take 5 episodes to do it.
Dragon Ball Z has been the main project that I've worked on for the 15 years. It just keeps on coming. Dragon Ball Z never stops, and hopefully it won't stop.
Well, I don't think the audience has changed in the sense that the young folks coming in on the brand are just as excited as the ones that saw in the 90s, and the guys and gals that saw it in the 90s still love it as a classic. And so the only thing that's happened to our fan base is it's just grown wider in terms of age demographic. So as like I said, the people that saw it in the 90s have grown up, they're now telling their kids about how great this series is. And it's amazing how many parents are watching now with their kids.
There's a handful of shows that we both love. It's just, it's incredible. It's one of those experiences
that we can both enjoy.
Bridges the generational gap.
It's an amazing piece of content that our founder, Gen Fukunaga, you know, if I talk about first dates, this is the one he was smitten with. This is the one, you know, he looked longingly at across the room. And as we were a very young company at the time, it was very impressive that Toei gave us their vote of confidence and handed off their baby to us.
A few of the top events that helped the franchise was on the early stages. It was the faith that the Bondi and Pioneer had in the franchise to help support it from a toy and home video point of view, and then it went into syndication with several syndicators that helped the project along. And then in 1998 was probably the biggest breakthrough when Cartoon Network picked it up. Though they were a much smaller network back then, but it was a really great relationship with them. The brand helped them, but they certainly helped us a lot. And that was a key turning point, was the network exposure on Cartoon Network.
When you look at the ability to reach a wider audience, there were shows, you know, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! That came out in that era that broke mass, there's no doubt. But they were very much kid shows. And I think Dragon Ball was a bridge. It worked for an older audience and a younger audience. And it showed a breadth of content that anime could appeal to various demographics, not just, you know, 6 to 11-year-old kids. And I think that was a very big change in the way that anime was perceived, at least at the level of the U.S. Businesses. I think that when you look at retailers like Walmart, or when you look at people like Cartoon Network, I think it really changed the way that they viewed anime. And I think that provided a lot more means for us to reach our fans.
We heard, you know, the ratings just kept going up and up. I think there were like 25 or something when we stopped, but started. It was like 25th. But then it kept going up and up and up and up and up. And eventually, we were the highest rated animated TV show.
I was a really immature 30-year-old when I got on Dragon Ball Z, and I noticed that there was a lot of changes it afforded me. One of the things that afforded me is not necessarily financially, but it afforded me, through opening the doors for all the other work I did with Goku and everything else I did, that career collectively afforded me the opportunity to work on myself. The whole transformative process of what a show does to you and what a dream job does to you versus, it's like winning the lottery without winning the lottery in the sense. Emotionally, it's like winning the lottery. And, but you don't really feel that it's a lottery that trickles, because it's like, you start out, you meet people, oh, it's cool, you're on the show. And then 15 years later, they start comparing you to people who I look up to.
But no, Dragon Ball Z for us was a huge leap. That was our first introduction to the anime, and Toonami, and seeing everything that kind of comes with it. You know, the characters, character development, the long scenes, the stretching, and Dragon Ball Z and how they kind of presented everything was huge for us.
I remember one meeting when we were talking with the syndicator, and the head of the group was saying, we were saying, hey, you know, this show's starting to perform for you. You ought to move it over to this other time slot on a network, which would give it more exposure. And he was like, oh, no, I don't know about that. You know, there's still a little bit of that feeling of, wasn't one of their titles, you know, and so not sure. And he looks over to his vice president and he says, right, you know, it's just doing all right? And the guy's like, and he pulls out the data, showing he was like rating #1 in every one of his markets, you know, and the guy goes, oh, well, yeah, that's just probably a few fluke markets. And so they never moved over to the other slot that we wanted. But this was pre-Cartoon Network, by the way. So people just weren't even willing to look at their hard data and see that this was a really good show. You know, it's still kind of that, it's not a Hollywood product kind of feel to it. It was probably just too unique for its time.
I don't know when Dragon Ball Z became a major hit, to be quite frankly. I think it happened before I started here. But how it hit different employees, I think it hit everybody differently. It was a ripple effect. Now, I will say this, in going back and kind of knowing the story of how Dragon Ball Z got here at Funimation, I could say that Gen is the prophetic one. He knew it from the start. And I think that if he said that in his interview, I would believe him 110%. But I think he knew from the start this was the one. So, I mean, he made a business off of one property. That seems pretty risky. And, so that's what further convinces me he knew. He knew. He was like, yeah, this is the one. So go again. That's number one. But I think that might be actually one of the reasons why it didn't hit everybody, kind of at the same time, right as soon as it went on air. I remember, for instance, with one of the mix engineers, the lead mix engineer for Dragon Ball Z, one of the comments he shared with me and a few friends: Cartoon Network waits for nobody. I think really before it was a realization of success, stress was hammering down on when something was due, and so I think really that never sunk into anybody. I think it began to sink into actors when they went out to conventions. And I think that was really when it first began starting to become something that was like, oh, whoa, this is interesting. About that same time, Lycos, which I don't know if anybody in the world knows what that is, but Lycos was like the Google of the early 2000s, as far as I know. And Lycos would have Dragon Ball Z as one of the most searched. They would keep up with your searched, phrases when you search on the internet, whatever. Dragon Ball Z 1 week beat Britney Spears, which is a big deal at that time. And so I think when moments like that began to happen, 15 people would realize it and not say anything. And then another 2 people would realize it. And so I think it just kind of happened. And then one day we looked up and Dragon Ball Z is like this extremely popular thing. Quite frankly, I think like anything else, we probably didn't notice that until we were done with it. You don't know what you got till it's gone. And I think when that happened, there began to be a bit of a hole, with the work that was coming in, the popularity for a show for voice actors working on something. But no, I don't know that it ever sunk into anybody that, wow, it's a changed world. Everything's different. It certainly didn't occur to me until I went to my first convention. And that was the first time that I realized that there were this many people that would gather in one place that liked this stuff. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me. I've been a fan of weird little fringe entertainment or niche entertainment kind of stuff all along. And I've known, those kind of, the fans that go along with those kinds of things. But I'm a small town guy. I never went to a convention, never knew I went to one convention, but it was like it was more like a huge flea market more than and it wasn't anything, and there were dead stuffed animals and taxidermists there. This was that kind of a convention. But I never knew any of that existed, and then seeing it, that was the first time that it dawned on me. But I think that was the way it was for most people.
There were great anime before Dragon Ball, but I think that a lot of the US influencers didn't realize what it was or how big it could be. And I think Dragon Ball kind of broke through that wall. Also, I would say that Dragon Ball and Cartoon Network really grew up together. When we started with Cartoon Network, it was in a very small footprint of homes. And it was the success of Dragon Ball Z. There's times when it was beating out Survivor, males 18 to 34 in ratings. And that was astonishing to everyone.
I don't think that I'm necessarily 100% aware of how big it is, to be honest. I mean, I understand that there's a lot of people that watch it, and it's big in parts of society and sell a lot of merchandise, and I'm aware of it, but I don't know to the scale of which the success is.
When I first started working on Dragon Ball Z, it was already in the process of taking off. The Frieza saga, and the Saiyan saga prior to that, obviously, had already been recorded and already been released on Cartoon Network. So the groundswell was beginning to form. People were starting to take notice of the show and starting to get interested. Shortly after I started with the introduction of the Trunks saga, I mean, everyone knew, all of the powers that be, up in the offices. They knew that Trunks was, at the time, the most popular anime character in Japan, from Dragon Ball Z especially. And so everyone had a big feeling that when Trunks hit the airwaves, that was going to be the point where, if Dragon Ball Z was going to take off, it was going to be there. And so that was a, motivation for all of us to really try to, put all of our efforts into it and, everything we could muster to try to make these, episodes where Trunks was introduced, as awesome as we could make them.
It's weird because I don't think it ever sunk in. Like, I would have DVDs and DVDs. No, it was before DVDs, VHSs. I had those in the back of my trunk. We'd get the old copies of them, and I'd have all these people come up, some of my friends. I'm like, "Oh, you like Dragon Ball Z?" They're like, "Oh my gosh, it's the biggest show ever." I'm like, "Really? Well, here I have a bunch of episodes." Pass them out of my car. So that was kind of funny. I don't think it ever really sunk in. It still blows me away that people know what it is and know who I am in a vague sort of way.
I had some suspicions that it was going to be a thing, because I want to say I couldn't have been voice acting for 6 months, maybe, when I was charged with going out to my first convention, which was Anime Expo when it was held in Anaheim, California, at Disneyland. And I went there with Chris Sabat, and there was, I can't tell you how many people were lined up for our autograph, which was the first time I actually sat down to do an autograph signing. And it kind of floored me that people wanted me to sign something of theirs. Like, okay.
I knew that Dragon Ball Z was a big deal because Kyle Aber and I worked this radio show together. And I knew from him, because he was a fan of the show. So I knew, because I came in season 3, so it had already been on the air when I started working on Dragon Ball Z. And so I knew it was popular.
When I first realized Dragon Ball Z was like a big deal and that it was like, I was a part of something, I really didn't realize just what a global scale it really was and how popular the shows was in Japan and just really all over the world. And I got a call one day to come in. Score Entertainment had started a card game series, like the Magic and the Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Pokemon and all that stuff. So they'd also done just like a trading card series. So I got called in one time, and they paid me money to sign my autograph. And they gave me these prints of the cards, like I have an uncut print of the card, numbered and stuff like that. And so it was to get called in, to come in and get paid to sign my autograph. I'm kind of like, really? Y'all want me to sign these things and you're going to give me money? I'm like, why? I just do this wrestler guy voice. So that was kind of that was like, okay, whoa, this is neat. And then the Dragon Ball Z Hummer Tour, where Score again put this actual like military Hummer with these decals, and they drive it all around the country and set up these locales at comic places and conventions and things like that to promote the card game. And they'd hire us voice actors to kind of go around. So that was kind of my first experience before the con circuit really broke loose, and there's a convention every weekend. So that was my sort of introduction into getting to go to different locations and see other people's response and things like that.
Yeah. Huh? What am I doing? Mr. Satan's the winner! This is fantastic! Mr. Satan retains his title! I'm the man!
I think that Dragon Ball Z and anime in general has changed American television by way of making it more serialized. That the story continues week to week, as opposed to it being something that closes out at the end of a week. So your 1-hour drama programs, those are the ones I think that you could pick from almost immediately. Like, we'll go back to Lost and Battlestar. Those two, every episode depends on the 10 previous ones you've seen. And of course, all of anime operates that way.
The way I see characters growing, besides, height and muscle tone, because you're gonna get those anyway, is they learn about themselves through their experiences, just like we do in real life. And, you know, that's always a good lesson to learn, especially to kids, is who you are is not always who you're going to be, because you're going to change throughout your life, because you're going to learn through what you do.
I think it's really a giant influential. It definitely branches out to the younger crowd, and it also gives that utility to the audience. It shows them to stay humble, be who you are, and don't change.
My favorite change with Dragon Ball Z is getting to watch Gohan grow up from being that little kid to being the preteen to being the awkward Saiyaman phase and then having a child of his own and being able to be a father. It's really cool to be able to see a character evolve like that throughout his entire life.
Hey! What's up? Thanks for coming. You're so sweet. So what are we going to do today?
Well, I've never been on a date before. Is there something that you want to do? Oh, well, let's think about it. Let's see here.
Hey, what about a movie?
One fantastic thing about our fans is that they will tell us exactly what they think. And sometimes we don't like what we hear, but it causes us to reevaluate things. But when they love something, not only do they tell us, they tell 20 of their friends and every other influencer out there that they can, and that has a huge effect. And to that end, they called their cable companies and said, I want to watch Dragon Ball Z, and that got Cartoon Network in a lot more homes. And as it grew, the popularity of Dragon Ball grew because more people had a chance to watch it. And Cartoon Network's had a huge impact on both the fans and the retail side in America because, you know, Walmarts and Targets and Best Buys felt a lot more confident in bringing in Dragon Ball figures or video games or even the DVD, knowing that Cartoon Network was exposing it to millions of people. Well, the amount of people that called Cartoon Network to get it helped Cartoon Network, and through it, Dragon Ball reach those millions of people. So it was this fantastic spiral that all came together so perfectly. One of Gen Fukunaga's favorite things to do when he goes to a convention is he will spend about an hour in the booth just talking to our fans, really trying to relate to them. And a lot of times he'll ask them, how did you get into anime? The amount of people that say, I watched Dragon Ball Z, and that's why I'm here today. That's why I got into anime. I think Dragon Ball Z did that for a large number of people.
Moonwalk magic! Magic cloud! Oh, Magic Cloud! Now I order you, go to the four corners of the world and find me pretty girls.
Dragon Ball Z, of course, influenced everything. Everything it can't touch.
Life.
Yes, that's deep, man.
It has.
it's what your breakfast has had been. So yeah. But at conventions is definitely, over the years, you've seen multiple people who will, like, started out with Dragon Ball Z, watching it in the mornings, and then found out this wonderful world of anime. There's more than just Dragon Ball Z, and came out to this. But their love for Dragon Ball Z never dropped, never faltered. I've seen at least 3 Goku cosplays come by like that.
Yeah, you're never too old for Dragon Ball Z.
You're never too old for Dragon Ball Z at all, even if you're starting new along those lines. But basically, over the con years, basically, we've seen more and more people come from, they almost were like not even their same costume, but they brought it out of the closet. They were like, you know what? I cosplayed Goku back in the day. I'm gonna do it again. Or I bought it all on VHS and I bought it all on DVD, but I really want to see it on Blu-ray next because it's more Dragon Ball. I can't turn it down. I can't stop. It's mainline Dragon Ball Z.
I think one of the most impactful influences I've seen at conventions for Dragon Ball Z was the first time we ever did the Super Saiyan
hair
crowns.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
So we made the cardboard cutouts that everyone could grab and put on. They're basically like Burger King style crowns.
I saw a dude wearing one earlier.
And people hang on to these things. But I mean, you go around, I forget what con it was specifically, but you would see just seas of yellow hair through the crowd. It was amazing. Everyone loved them.
Like the guy at Otaku, one of our other big ones, he bought a bunch of them. He came back with a giant Saiyan beard. He just took like 20 of them and just fused them together. And it was pretty epic. It was like, I guess, like Goku, he grows up to be much in the future and stuff like that.
But yeah, Dragon Ball Z has kind of been a staple for us at conventions. Over the years, it keeps making its way back somehow, some way.
One before, I think, but maybe just right at your beginning of time, or a little bit before, we had the biggest, baddest Dragon Ball Z contest on Earth, where we actually did a big contest around the whole country, and the winner basically got an orange Onyx Dragon Balls, real Dragon Balls, well, not the Wish part, but real Dragon Balls with gold stars in them. And we flew everyone to Texas to compete in like Dragon Ball Budokai, whatever was out then. And it was a huge deal. We had it was hosted by Chris Sabat. It was like its own game show for that because it was Dragon Ball at conventions and everyone loved it. So it was a packed house and it's never gonna stop. Never.
No, keeps going.
Nope.
Well, interacting with fans at conventions is our applause. We're working in a booth. I'm from a theater background. I'm used to people applauding and laughing and stuff like that. And you don't get that in a booth. The director is trying really hard not to laugh. He doesn't want to ruin your take. They may laugh after the take's over, but when you go to conventions, that's when you get your applause. That's when you get people who say they love what you do, and you're like, okay, this is why I'm doing it.
When I meet kids now, I'm doing it 10, 12 years. When I first started, yeah, it's cool, you're on a show. Now it's like, you're my whole life when I was a kid. And then it gets deeper. I watched this with my brother, and he went to the Gulf War and died. So all I have is your voice and my brother mixed together. And it'll grab you. It will. Or, I didn't have a father, so I imagine Goku was my dad, and I'm just choking up thinking about it. I've had letters written to me, and I know what that's like. You think it's some wacky fan kid. Bull crap. I had all kinds of hero worship like that when I was a kid.
The first convention I ever went to was Wizard World Chicago, and it was in maybe 2008. And that was the first time I had ever there, and it was me, Chris Sabat, Jason Liebrecht, Sean Schimmel, and Kyle Aber, I believe. And so it's like me and the boys. And it was just a signing. That's all we were doing. It was one of the movies had just come out, and they had us just there to sign autographs. And there was like a 5-hour long wait for our autographs. And it blew my mind. I quit my radio job and went full-time in voiceover after that convention. Because I was like, this is so much cooler than radio.
A lot of the con stories and the tour stories I have somehow purged from my mind. There were so many horrible and crazy, awesome things that happened that I've pushed a lot of them from my memory. One of my favorite stories is like one of the first times that we went to a convention. Gen Fukunaga and the guys sent me and Sonny and Sean Schimmel and Stephanie Nadolny to Comic-Con in 1999. It was the first convention we'd ever been to. And it was, Funimation was a low-budget place. So they put us all in the same room. All of us, including Stephanie, in the same room together. And this place was like, you could pick up a rock and throw it and hit an airplane as it would land at like LAX. It was the loudest, most dank and nasty place we've ever stayed in. I remember calling again going, dude, there's only 2 small beds here. They don't even have another room for us. We had to talk them into even giving us another room for Stephanie so she could have her own privacy. Those were crazy fun days. You know what's funny about that Comic-Con was such an amazing thing because none of us had ever seen a convention before, and what a crazy place to see for your first convention.
I haven't been to that many conventions. I would love to do more. Just being amazed that anyone dresses up as any characters I've done, you know, it's so flattering. And it sounds cheesy and cliche, but it's so humbling that someone really, truly wants to meet you and really, truly cares.
The first time I ever went to a convention, I had, I will say, a different experience. I was asked to be a part of a panel discussing post-production audio for the fans. And I had worked for Funimation for about 6 months, so I was still very green, very enthusiastic. I felt like, this is cool, and it was a local one. Funimation is based out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and this was a convention in Dallas. And so I drove out there with Neil Malley, one of the other mixers, and we were out there with Chris Bevins and Mike McFarland as the 2 representatives for directors. I had never been to a convention. Now, I was aware of anime, but I had never seen cosplay before. I did not know cosplay existed. So I kind of walked in this door and was just struck by all these people in costumes and everything, and the amount of them. And I remember my first thought was, cool. Everybody has a place where they can get together and kind of hang out. This is kind of nice. I think Justin Cook will call them refueling stations. I agree. You go out there and you see the passion, and you see how much they care, and you see how much they appreciate your work and your efforts and what you're doing. And it pushes you. You find yourself, and it really is fuel in those moments when you're in that grind and it's 3 or 4 in the morning and the review's coming up at 10 that night, and you've done this for 2 or 3 nights in a row, and your hand is literally shaking from the double shot Starbucks and the Red Bulls. You can do them rotating every 2 hours, people. It's magic, I promise. But when you're in that grind and you want to just cut the corner and finish and be done with it and try to get some sleep, it's those moments that'll actually propel you to try to do more and be more, because ultimately, if you're in the industry, you get your job and you got your paycheck coming, you will face inevitably that moment of, I could just get this finished and move on, or am I gonna put in the extra effort to try to make it as good as it possibly can? And I think the conventions, when you see those fans and you're motivated by their passion, it's kind of hard not to want to push, because you realize there's somebody waiting for this on the other side, and they want it to be as good as it can be.
I think it's really important just because you can actually get with a whole bunch of people that are just as happy and having as much fun as you can just about a certain character or a certain show or just whatever. You can find a lot of people that are just like you.
Dragon Ball Z has been released several times in different formats. And with so much entertainment and media available in high definition and beyond, it's about time that we finally were able to see Dragon Ball Z, the entire series, in high definition.
I think it deserves a Blu-ray release because, you know, the remastered series look great, but on Blu-ray, 1080p is going to look even better. It definitely gives it new focus, finer line on the graphics, and I think with all the extras, it's going to show you some stuff that you're not going to have on a regular DVD.
And the fact that it's Blu-ray, we always wanted to see Dragon Ball Z like realistic, and so Blu-ray gets very close to that, and how the way the graphics of the animation and the Blu-ray, you can't get any better with Blu-ray, and it's incredible.
Instead of just regular DVD, you've got better special features, just the way that it'll look on TV and like everything with that, as well as, it just deserves it. It has too much respect to not just be on DVD and VHS.
I think it's important. I think because just to kind of keep up with the times, people are into quality. They want to see the definition. They want to know that they're watching something quality. I think when something has a bit of a lack of quality, even though it's maybe good. People are like, oh, it doesn't look good. People want the bells and the whistles and the sharpness, your HD, your everything, your curved TV. They want it to look good. And so, like everything else, you just got to kind of keep up with the times. And I think that's important. It adds to a new generation of fans, like I was talking about before. And I'm sure possibly those kids are going to have kids and hopefully watch Dragon Ball Z. And
291 episodes of Dragon Ball Z to be the goal being redone in a single calendar year. Video remastering, audio remastering, remixing, reprinting, everything, all the way down through the authoring. That is monumental. That's almost a year's worth of production, but you're doing that on top of what you're already doing. So you'll get 30 episodes, 32 episodes for a set, and you'll have 2 weeks to crank those out. So, and you might have 2 or 3 mixers working on that. So each mixer has to do 10 episodes. They're working at a rate of maybe 2 a day, then going back over and then printing them. And then QC might find quality control as QC. They'll find out, oh, hey, there's this weird glitch or pop that occurs. Now you got to go back and fix that. So there's all this moving forward, and then you double back, move forward and double back. And it's just this constant changing of the guard. I call it Tetris, but every time the piece drops, the piece shape changes. That's one aspect. If you're the type of person I am, you kind of fuel yourself off of that kind of a challenge. With this production department and crew, everybody here cares. Everybody wants everything we do to be as good as it possibly can. I've yet to see anybody who's like, I'm gonna make this a bad show. I'm gonna make this a bad recording or a bad mix or a bad compression for the DVD or a bad restoration for the project. Everybody is, if anything, people are frustrated that we don't have enough time, or what can we do that can be better, or how can we expand it? Oh, if we just had this one piece of equipment, we could do it this way, and it would completely change our workflows and things like that. You find everybody constantly looking and discussing with each other, almost like a community of how can we improve and how can we get better. And with the rapidly changing technology landscape now, with the way the industry is going, it's great because there's stuff coming up all the time that really improves efficiency. And every little bit of time we can get, every little scrap as a group, it enables us to do better things.
I don't believe this. 3,000 killies? How can an Earthling generate 3,000 killies of energy?
It can't be. With 300 killies, it's possible to destroy a planet. 3,000? I tell you, a human with that much power does not exist.
Do you think the meter is broken? If he really has 3,000 killies of energy, Yakon doesn't even have a chance.
My favorite character, of course, is Goku. You know, he's one of the most kindest, strongest warriors ever, and I just love how he finds the goodness in everybody, and I can relate to that because I try to find the goodness in people too.
My favorite character in Dragon Ball Z is Piccolo. And simply because I love Chris Sabat's voice in that character. And he's a funny character, like, he's a serious character, but he's also funny, and there's some really funny things that happen with him. I love the dynamic between when he's training Goten and Trunks, and they're trying to fuse. I love the dynamic because he's this, you know, deep-voiced, big, bad guy, and here's these 2 goofy kids that just want to, like, be cool and play and stuff. And so, you know, Chris Sabat was the first person I met at Funimation. He was the first actor that I had spent any time around. And so, you know, maybe that has a little bit to do with it, is because he'll always be near and dear to my heart in a bunch of different ways. And so I think that maybe that's why I love Piccolo so much, but I do. He's always been my favorite.
I really like Bulma because she's a really strong female character, and like she does all these things that like the guys in the show can't. Yeah. And so she shows younger girls that they can do whatever they want to do, and they can be great at it, like no matter what, if they just like follow their dreams. Because she's been like wanting to do all that since she was a wee tot.
On Dragon Ball Z, it would actually have to be Krillin. Just because Krillin is that guy, no matter how much he gets beat down, even when he's outclassed, he's still the guy who always volunteers to be front line. I love it.
I would say my favorite character on Dragon Ball Z is Vegeta. And because I like redemption stories, you know. I like the idea that somebody can live their life horribly and then still come out being a nice guy. Or in Vegeta's case, at least not completely bad, you know? That's why I like the Bardock story. Bardock is another part I played. It's Goku's dad, And he's, just the same, this evil, Saiyan who turns it around at the end and sacrifices himself. But yeah, definitely Vegeta. And I love that hairline.
My favorite character would have to definitely be Trunks. I like Trunks a lot. He was really cool. Future Trunks has a complex storyline. He comes from the future. He's a wounded future, I guess. So he comes to the past to try to make everything happen, and he's pretty awesome.
Sorry about all of the secrecy, but I really need your word that you won't tell anybody else what I'm about to say.
Well, I've never had a problem keeping secrets, but sure, you have my word.
Thank you. My name is Trunks. This is going to sound really strange, but I'm not from this time. I traveled here in a time machine 20 years from the future.
Voice actors, honestly, it's hard to pick any one specifically. So I'm just gonna say love the work. I can't say anything else.
I don't want to say Chris Sabat. I don't. Like, the last thing I want to do is give that jerk any more credit than he already takes for himself every day. But I would say probably him. He did such a good job up front voicing so many different characters. He was playing so many different characters on Dragon Ball Z and stuck with quite a few of them as the cast changed over the years. And so really I learned from him. I learned from his direction, and I learned from watching him perform and other things, just like watching him publicly, like watch at a convention, watching him, the way he handles guests, the way he handles odd questions, So yeah, I'd begrudgingly say Mr. Sabat, even though he's a great friend of mine.
Personally, I would have to say Eric Bal. He nails Trunks every time, and I followed his career through like Sengoku Basara. I followed Eric Bell for a long time, so he's one of my favorites.
Well, I love what Kyle Hebert has done with all the voices that he's ever done for the show, so keep it up.
I would probably say Sonny Strait because I actually haven't had a chance to meet him, and he's just so super cool. I would say thanks again for hanging out with the random panel guys. We had to host a late night panel, and you hung out after years to make ours even better. That was awesome.
Of course, Sean Shamel. I love he did a great choice with Goku. Also with King Kai. You can't, oh my God, he did a great job with that. I thank you for everything, and so you did really inspire me a lot to just be good. And that's the one thing I want to say. I was inspired a lot by Sean Shamel.
What can I say? Look, I wish I was the strongest guy in the universe. Then I could have helped, but I'm not. I can't beat Majin Buu. But with the fusion technique, I know the two of you can. If you'll trust me and you're willing to learn what I have to show you, we can still get that monster for all the terrible things he's done.
So I just want to say to all the fans out there who watch Dragon Ball Z that this might be long, because I've been playing this character a long time. But, and especially to Akira Toriyama and Masako Nozawa, and the rest of the Japanese cast, and Japan in general, and the rest of the world. So you ever see those pictures of like in the 1800s or like early 1900s, and there's a meeting of people who all care about one thing, and they take that club picture, they're all on the rowing team, or they're in the cricket team, and those guys were there together. They were in World War II, and they got their arms around. You see those guys. I feel like Dragon Ball Z fans that we're all alive now today, and I'm alive, and we watch the show, and we're like, that's our moment, that's our picture of that club we were in. Someday we'll all be gone, and we have this thing that we all love together that we really appreciate, and it's made my life worth living. So thank you so much for accepting what I do, and I thank Akira Toriyama and Funimation and the powers that be to let me channel Goku, as it were, and whatever that is, the spirit of the Monkey King or whatever, through me and what it's done for me personally in my life. And we'll always have this this special thing called Dragon Ball Z. So I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart. So thank you. That's what I want to say.
I think it's because you have actors who will constantly hit the edge of couches like this. I was just told by the sound guy, don't do that.
For a second, I'm gonna...
Perfect. We got the shot. Mind the frame. Mind the frame.
No,
Gabriel and I don't know.
No,
Mind the frame.
You're good now.
Frame right now. Is this gonna make the outtake? Tell me it makes the outtake.
This is for B-roll.
No, because I'm saying a rapid montage of me doing that. It's got to be fun. It'll be part of the spastic. You shoot me with that, there will be consequences.
This is just to keep you in line. All right, so
You just gotta aim right. Oh, you want me to actually?
what do you know?
Really serious?
What do you know about Dragon Ball Z? I'm serious. I got it cocked sideways.
It's a Nerf gun, jackass. It's not gonna hurt. You can bleep that, right?
We can
I got people that would be offended.
We can
by
finish
that.
this interview with a whole nice little red dot on your face if you want. We can make it happen.
So, who do you think is the most influential person in your life?
Most influential person in my life? Let me think.
And completely revolves around toilets flushing. The weirdest thing. That's actually a sound effect I use whenever we discipline anybody.
Yeah.
B-roll! B-roll! I'm getting shot at! This is great! B-roll! B-roll! Whew, okay. I think that hurt my head a little bit. Okay, I hope you all absorbed all this information because you will be tested on it. Now that you've seen it, go get it, play it, tell me about it. I'll see you on Dragon Ball Z. Thanks again, bye.